Hello. So I'm planning a series of lectures, presentations on Ramdas, and as an introduction, as a preview, I will do a very short introduction. I was asked to do it like for 10 minutes, and I will try in the first 10 minutes. I will try to say the most important thing, but then I would have to explain it's hard to jump everything into 10 minutes. Like you wouldn't get it, the motivation and what really the words mean. But I will try. So the main idea is that I'm not Ramdas, and but it's a great pleasure for me. I'm not Ramdas. It's a great pleasure for me to connect to the energy, connect to the ideas, and research that. So initially it was just an idea to present what I already know, but then as I realized there is like a lecture coming, I started studying more, and as I started studying more, there is more and more interesting stuff, so it's a great connection. So the reason I picked that topic was for the last few years, I moved gradually from, it was a long series of teachers, like Bashar was about 15 years ago, several more teachers. Yogananda was very big for me. Then many other teachers, but Terence McKenna was huge. Terence McKenna. And then gradually, when I had to pick one, I would pick Ramdas. That's like, what's your belief system? What's your knowledge system? What's your metaphysical understanding? I should also mention Blavatsky. Not that I like reading her, but I always come back to her because she pronounced it in a book published in 1892. And there is nothing like that. So 1892, 130 years ago, something like that. So coming back to Ramdas, it's a pleasure to connect to that energy. And the main idea is, so if you don't know who Ramdas is, I will put under the video, I will put all the names I gave. I will just listen and write them down and give some links. But that's the book I had to read. I read just to prepare for the conversation. Being Ramdas. It's the last book, which was written largely at the last 10 years and published after his, posthumously, after his departure. And it's co-authored by his Ramesh something, his friend and follower. So it's a joint effort, but that's important. And obviously I studied Be Here Now, and I love it. And this is another book which gave me, it's an outsider perspective or researcher perspective. It's Harvard Psychedelic Club, how Timothy Leary, Ram Dass, Houston Smith, Andrew Weil killed the 50s and ushered in a new age for America. And when I'm, when I have to, especially filling out different applications, sometimes they ask you what your religious denomination, and I would have to say New Age, which is very undefined, but maybe Theosophy would be good because it's pretty much New Age. But if I had to choose, it would be Ram Dass, who is, I guess, at the center, and he was most pronounced best. He was best to pronounce the concepts which are the center of my model of the universe and multiverse, the other side, essentially, the spiritual world. I wrote several books about the metaphysics. And there is a big part of his teaching there. And not that I started listening. I grew I discovered him a long time ago, and but I know some people who knew him in person, and couple people who one person who took LSD with him, and he mentions in his last book, Ramdas mentions, that person knows me through my scientific work, and actually I think he's maybe understands the best my scientific work, which is partly in genomics and partly in metaphysics. It's a merge of genomics and metaphysics. And if you don't know what metaphysics is, it's a science including the spiritual science as well. It's like psychology study of the soul and of what's about the soul, the spiritual side plus physics all together, the overall all-including science. It's like yoga, all-including science. All right, so speaking about Ramdas, there was like several different parts of the life of Ramdas, especially studying his biography. Obviously, the early age, which is different. Then there was awakening into science, so that was a big watershed. And then Ramdas as official scientist. I mean, he was a scientist for the rest of his life, but he was more in metaphysics, which is not exactly official science. But before that, there was a period when he discovered himself, was created as a scientist, discovered himself as a scientist, until he was thrown out of Harvard for his psychedelic research and popularization of psychedelics. Basically, it happened simultaneously when psychedelics were outlawed and he was thrown out of Harvard. It was just like a pushback. Sometime in the middle of 60s, I should know the date, but I don't. Very early 60s, I would say middle of 60s. Anyway, and then there is another part of his life when he was preaching about psychedelics outside of Harvard. Actually, they were not outlawed. They started to be outlawed, but weren't yet outlawed. So there were several years when he was a psychedelic lecturer, preacher, former Harvard scientist, speaking about psychedelics, and he was super popular there as well. He was a super popular lecturer in the academy. Then he became super popular lecturer outside of the academy. And then as the psychedelics were outlawed, then he couldn't do it anymore. And then he had to reinvent himself again. And he went to India. He met his guru, spiritual teacher, Nim Karoli Baba. Usually the inner circle call him Maharaji, which is great king. And as Krishna Das, not Ramdas, Krishna Das says that millions of people in India called Maharaji. So it's only in reference to Ramdas and Krishna Das, this Maharaji is from their crowd. So he met Maharaji, and then he essentially minimized his use of psychedelics, and that's the next stage of his life when he became a spokesperson for the new discovered spiritual science of yoga with Maharaji. And that's where the West knows Ramdas the most. So he basically transformed the whole planet, the whole Western world, and through that the whole planet in a big way. Now what he was preaching, it becomes the mainstream. And I think he was one of the key transformers, key person for transformation, key people for transformation. And then there was a stroke, and which was surrounded by another, I would say, mystical experiences, and then he became disabled and couldn't speak well. He lost his main talent of public speaking. I mean, he was a genius of public speaking, and then he lost it. And then there was another part of his life, last years, when he couldn't speak. He could think, but he couldn't speak. And then that was very interesting for him and very interesting for us to learn what came out of that. And in this last book, there is a glimpse, a glance at Ram Dass after his losing ability to speak. Basically, you cannot already be super popular this way. And this, for me, was most interesting to see what is his real set of beliefs is. In the last book, you can glimpse into that. Basically, what is the ultimate truth? Because when you listen to Ram Dass, as he says, it's his profession, it's his business to be a public speaker. You know, people pay to be present at their lectures, and then his lectures are wonderful, but they're tailored in such a way that the audience that came has to at least understand it, right? So he had to usually put a lot of honey, a lot of stand-up comedy into his presentations to keep it entertaining and to turn the people around, turn them up, uplift them, and so on. So that subtracted something from his teaching, so it was somewhat filtered. Not a lot. Compared to other speakers, Ram Dass is very straightforward, very open, super open, and he's, as a super talented, ingenious speaker, he can wrap very complex concepts, very unusual concepts, very groundbreaking concepts into something understandable and something that people actually get. And you can actually see this, how skillfully he works in their metaphysical truth into his lectures. It's also very interesting that in spirituality, it's not very proper to actually proselytize, to preach and to convert others into your beliefs. In Indian, Eastern style of teaching, it's for the student to come and beg for the lessons, and the teacher with resistance gives a little bit away. So basically the rule is to give away only as much as the students are ready to take, only as much as they deserve to take, only as much as their karma allows them to take at the moment, as much as it's useful for them, for their progress. And since the public is pretty much very uneven, you don't want to give them too much, so they don't get crazy, they don't get hurt, and actually it's not good for them, and it's also not good for spiritual knowledge to be in the hands of unprepared people. So he had to filter, but at the last pages, at the end of the books, at his last book, you can see what he really believes, right? What wasn't said before. And it's depressing, actually. Not because it was fake, but because what actually comes out is not as pleasant as it seems when you put it in an attractive way for the public. When you get to the inner knowledge, you have to be not even strong, you have to be balanced enough, you have to be connected to the spirit enough to take the truth. That's what I'm saying, yeah. the truth is not as pretty as it looks from outside. When you come to the inner truth, to the ultimate truth, it's pretty, how to say, not as sweet as you would think. It's not depressing, it's more like surprising, I would say, surprising. Yeah. But there is a shortcut, which is meditation, yoga, and psychedelics. And I should define psychedelics for those who confuse it for with illicit drugs. So psychedelics are not the drugs that give you pleasure. They are giving you temporary connection to the spirit. And usually every trip to the spirit world is similar to death. So it's more like killing yourself temporarily just to feel how it is there to be dead and then coming back. So it's, if people do psychedelics, it's not for pleasure, it is to reconnect with the spirit. Temporarily, it's only a temporary, like usually it's like 2 hours, 3 hours with the spirit. Sometimes it's like a few seconds with the spirit. Sometimes it's a little longer. Sometimes it is maybe half a day, but then you come back and you pay for that actually. By losing yourself, you lose your ego, you lose your self-perception, you lose big part of the drama. All right. And psychedelics natural are psilocybe mushrooms, psilocybe mushrooms, ayahuasca, LSD, and couple other natural plants and extracts from plants. And that's about it. Everything else is for pleasure, and that's not it. And experienced psychedelic traveler can actually travel without even taking the chemicals. Just from pure air, pure water, pure spirit, pure connection, pure nature. So you can sneak the roads and have a nice trip, right? So this is just the first part, brief introduction to looking at Ram Dass. I should add to it that as a scientist, I connect to his scientific mind strongly, and like Indian teachings, traditional Eastern teachings, they don't include research and reinvention and rediscovery. They are oriented in such a way that you look at the past as classical golden age, and you should study the past, but you shouldn't reinvent it, shouldn't research what's really out there compared to what was in the classical teaching. So that's Eastern style. You have to learn from the masters and stop. But the West is oriented towards future, and it's golden future, not golden past. And you actually, as explorer, go explore and find things. And that's where psychedelic trippers called psychonauts go and do the research. And Ram Dass is one of the best researchers, especially because he was thinking very clearly and was able to explain what he got. And another, my favorite, is Terence McKenna. Ram Dass and Terence McKenna are the best. They basically, in the words of Ram Dass, they rediscover the maps of the spirit world. The maps of the spirit world. Basically, what is out there. And surprisingly, I don't know, both Ram Dass and Terence McKenna actually are pretty uninterested. They undervalue the astral world. Basically, there is physical world, there is astral, and there is like higher dimensions. So for both of them, astral is boring. They both prefer to go higher, all the way out there to higher levels. While for me, I think it's the most interesting what happens right here in their, what really matters for us is the astral. And Ram Dass explains that when you do spiritual practices and yoga, you sort of try to follow the highest of all. You try to get out there for the highest power, but he and many of us end up with power trips, which means we study astral worlds and higher worlds in order to get more power down below. So you become a better yogi, but still it's an ego trip to become more connected with strong spiritual energies to get more power, essentially. And it's just an ego power trip, what Ram Dass says, and he is, although he also went through that, and we go through that, he says that it's not the ultimate answer, right? So, and that's, I will discuss it, what is the ultimate answer. And it may be not something you will like to hear, but maybe you do like to hear. I mean, you want to know what it is, but when you hear it, you might not like the answer. And obviously, it's just a stage. Every month, every few weeks, I get a new answer. So it changes for me as well. But I will get you there, maybe, possibly. If there is enough interest, I will continue talking about this. And now let's just talk about a little bit about his teachings. What are the key topics? And surprisingly, I find that his favorite topic and my favorite topic is not exactly a huge part of the Eastern culture and not exactly a huge part of the yoga teachings or Hinduistic or Buddhist teachings. His main and favorite idea is that we humans, the souls, come from the same source, and ultimately it is the same person, the same one individual idea. And he calls this God sometimes, and I'm not sure if it is really God, but that's here, I come from, in large, from Jewish scientific tradition where you have to question, and it's very proper to question everything the teacher says. So when I talk about Ram Dass's ideas or teachings, I always question them, and I respect that you might not like that questioning, but consider that after your dislike of this questioning, you are free to choose, and I'm helping you to choose what you actually believe and what you actually like. So it's up to you how you take it. But the idea is that with LSD, especially with LSD, you lose that distinction between your physical ego mind, this mind, and the higher mind, which Ram Dass calls God. Or I think it would be more proper to say higher self, one of the higher selves, maybe several layers higher than self. So it's a higher self. So basically you dissolve temporarily your local ego, but you feel that you just move into some higher being, and you don't lose yourself. You're still there, it's just somewhat different you. And And that's a huge surprise. And then you find that your higher self and everybody else's on the planet higher self is the same being. And basically, we are one person. You and I, everyone, are one person at some higher level. And that's very frequent teaching of Ram Dass. He repeats it pretty much, not almost in every his presentation. And I love it. I love it. So, from that perspective, the whole drama of the life on this planet and whole drama of life becomes very different. So it's all about the model or the map of the spirit world. And then obviously there is his fascination with miracles that his teacher, guru, Maharaji Neem Karoli Baba performed. And Neem Karoli Baba had wonderful special talents. And I should say that. I should introduce you to their team of yogis. Essentially, we learn about this team of yogis. Let's call it team of yogis. The group of yogis that bring Indian knowledge to the West. They started 130 years ago with Blavatsky. Before that, Jesus was obviously bringing Indian knowledge to the West. Jesus Christ, between his childhood and adult years, he went to India, learned there, came back and brought Indian spirituality to the West. And now, and then there were other messengers. There were other experts of Eastern philosophy to the West. In Renaissance, there were like remembering the old truths. One of them was Jewish Hasidic movement, which remembered enlightened Indian truths. Then Blavatsky was given a lot of knowledge, and she actually met with her teachers who demonstrated the powers of translocation. Basically, they could, by meditation, just reappear, visit her, and come back to India through translocation, spiritual translocation. Then there was Vivekananda. 100 years ago, there was Yogananda 70 years ago. And then there was Ram Dass and Krishna Das. And when they come, there is a spiritual team of yogis supporting what they do. So when Ram Dass speaks, there is a strong beam of light coming down, and you can hear it even in the recordings. You watch him, you listen to him, and you feel the presence of that wonderful energy. So, and this is transforming the world right now. And when you connect to that energy, you get that power, and it's healing, and then you work with it. And then I would possibly talk about modern ideas of New Age, like law of attraction, that you make your reality, and that yoga allows you to transform not only your body, but the world around you. I think that's the key. By doing yoga, by stretching and meditating and inner work and working on your emotions and stuff, and the model of the spirit world in your mind, in your understanding, you change not only yourself, you change the whole universe. So through physiology, you change the world. That's New Age idea, and Ram Dass is teaching some of that, but not in direct way. It's in indirect way. Basically, in his words and his model, it is he and his guru is in union, and then his guru gives him lessons. So it's like 3-step process: Ram Dass, guru, lessons, Ram Dass. But it is still, there is a connection between how you relate to the spirit and what is actually happening to you. So by changing something inside, you get a different set of lessons. So your inside world co-creates the outside circumstances. And that's the teaching of Bashar and many others. And with that, I think I'll start to wrap up. I want to show you, I think I already showed you like one book and another book, and the rest you can find in under the video. And to find me, I guess you will also have to look under the video, but you can go to maxrempel.com. I will put the link there too eventually. But at least you know how to find me. I'm available on Facebook, Instagram, and many other ways. But maxrempel.com is good enough. So thank you very much. I will give you some sound for the closing. And it wasn't 10 minutes, but it was just an hour. That's the chant from my astral tribe. And the intention of it is to give you a spiritual invitation to the Ram Dass's energy, yeah. Basically to reconnect with Ram Dass. He didn't go very far, and Maharaji didn't go very far, so you can reconnect with it. Mm-hmm.